Fern Brethower was born into a farming family on the plains of Nebraska at the beginning of the 1920s. It was a time of great change and uncertainty for the farmers and ranchers of that region, but a time that Fern remembers as the best years of her life. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in southwestern corner of Nebraska, near the Colorado and also the Kansas borders. I wasn't very far from Kansas. I wasn't very far from Colorado.
What year were you born? Do you mind saying?
No, not at all. 1919.
Wow. What do you remember of that time growing up out on the prairie?
Oh, I remember that it was a happy experience. My growing up was very pleasant, but we had everything: love, lots of sunshine and lots of wind and lots of everything except money. But somehow we didn't need money.
How's that? What was it about
Well,
that
we
time?
because I was growing up on a farm, most of the food was homegrown. The meat, the vegetables, and
So you
whatever.
had a big garden?
Yes,
So most of your memories are happy ones of that
yes, they
time.
are.
What uh, what was it like in your teenage years growing up there?
Well, I probably was as off base as any teenager ever gets. We did a lot of crazy things, and the thing that is the most memorable is a car accident that I was in when I was probably just graduating from high school. And we were in a car race, four in our car, four in the other car. And we couldn't tell where the road and the ditch divided. They were filled with dust, so that all looked the same. And the guy who was driving the car I was in accidentally drove off the road. We did a complete spin back onto our wheels. Our car we were riding in wound up on its wheels, but that was after a complete rollover.
Really? Were
And
people thrown from the? I imagine everybody was thrown, right?
well, I was the only one that got uh, much damage. Apparently, when we rolled over, I kicked out the windshield, and because it had a canvas top or whatever, anyway, a soft top, and that my head was not injured, just my legs, and the car, as I said, completed a complete turn, and my parents was a Sunday night because my parents were in church, and so one of the guys went in and got them out, and we were taken to a neighboring town to a doctor because our town was a little bitsy place and didn't have a doctor, and I spent the greater part of the night getting my legs sewed up, and I had 20 some stitches taken, and was on a crutch for the remainder of the summer. So I remember that pretty well.
I bet you do. I bet that was emblazoned in your memory.
Well, oh yes, it's plain.
What about other people in that wreck? Were other people?
Nobody got hurt but me. I just, as I said, I was with the driver, and apparently kicked out the windshield as we rolled.
So when you say there was dust on the road, was that part of that time, the Dust Bowl? Was that?
Oh yeah, that was part of the Dust Bowl.
Can you tell me about that time? What was that like? What are your memories of the Dust Bowl time?
Oh, they're quite vivid But at the time, we didn't sit around feeling sorry for ourselves. We were a busy, active family, and we made the most of the situation. And as far as I knew, I didn't keep up much on national news at that time, except that I do recall that it was about the time that Roosevelt was inaugurated. And that's my most vivid recollection is my father sitting at the dinner table always praising Roosevelt because he was really in love with that man, and he felt that he saw hope in him, and he saw direction, and that my family was optimistic. We were always going to come through things.
Yeah. Was that a hard time for your parents?
Oh, it had to have been far harder than I ever imagined because I didn't feel that we were in hard times. I just knew that they were things that we were told no, we couldn't have, and all that sort of thing. Mother made all of our clothing, and we had people who handed down clothes to us. I don't know where they came from. And Mother was very talented and capable in her sewing skills. And she always fashioned something out of what we got. And that's what we wore. And we were proud and we were happy.
What was your favorite piece of clothing that she made you? Do you remember a particular thing?
Well, I remember making lots of things because I grew up sewing, and 4-H was a part of our growing up. We belonged to 4-H clubs, and we were always making things.
It was a hard time for your parents, and it was a hard time for that whole part of the country too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was for everyone, and I can't remember that there was anybody who was really different. We were all, I suppose, the friends I had about the same as I had. So that was that. You accepted it and made the most of it.
There were a lot of people on the road at that time leaving. Do you have any stories around people going west trying to find a better place?
I don't have any personal memories of people pulling up and leaving. We so-called owned the property that we were on, and because my dad he was always looking ahead, and he felt like you were going to prosper more if you bought something, stayed in one spot, and worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. That's what we did.
What kind of things did your parents have for a living? What did they do?
What did they do? They were farmers.
And what did your parents raise?
Oh, we raised practically everything that would grow until it got too dry. Corn, wheat, and corn were the chief crops. And I'm sure there were lots of it. I remember we had barley, and I don't know what else.
Well, you said they raised things until it got too dry. What was that like? Describe that time.
I remember distinctly seeing the corn about knee high and being dried up in the field. There were corn stalks standing there, but they had quit growing and everything was dry.
Well, during that hard time, and your parents didn't have a crop, that must have been particularly hard for them, not having any money coming in.
I'm sure it was. Money was something that we never really discussed, and we never had spending money in our fingers. We weren't given an allowance as children aren't given today. And there were 5 children in our family. There was a sister and 3 brothers. And I remember that one of the brothers went to a CCC camp. Now, where it was or how long he was gone or what, I just remember that he went to the CCC camp. And that's it.
That was one of those things that they were doing at the time to try to employ people, right?
Yes, as I've read about it in little bits that I retained, it was a camp where young men could go and work at whatever assignment they were given, and they were paid, but the money never went to them. It was sent home to the parents. Now, how long that went on, I have no idea.
Do you remember a particularly hard time for your parents?
Well, as I said, everybody that I knew, we were all of one situation. And so I didn't think, well, boo-hoo, my parents are having it rough. I just knew that my parents were providing and that I had 3 square meals a day. And I cannot remember ever going to bed hungry.
You said that even though you didn't have money, you were rich. Talk about the treasures you had.
I just remember it was a rich atmosphere in that there was love, and that we were never spent a lot of time talking about how bad things were. But I do remember my parents talking after Franklin Delano became president that things were going to get better. Things were going to get better, and they did. So I remember the positive side of it. And when I graduated from high school, you were looking forward to life. You were not tied in a knot and sitting in a corner.
That's the end of part 1 of Fern Brethower's story. Part 2 and part 3 are also available on this website.